I am Rabbi Amy Eilberg, and I am deeply engaged in issues of conflict, particularly within the Jewish community in North America, about that issue, which is an area of such deep passion to so many of us, the issue of Israel. I first became really profoundly interested in this issue around the time of the outbreak of the Second Intifada, when I realized that the synagogue that I was a part of, which was an exemplary Jewish community in almost every possible way, the kind of community that takes its Jewish life very seriously, takes relationship within the Jewish community very seriously, a group of people, a community of people that were really good at showing up for one another, both in times of joy and in times of sorrow. We raised our children together and loved praying together and all of that. And yet, when the Second Intifada broke out, it became clear that fault lines emerged in a really disturbing and maybe even destructive way within the congregation. And there came to be a tear in the fabric of community relationships between those, for want of a better term, who were right of center and those left of center. And this is not to place blame on one side or another. Similar mistakes get made in both sides. I know of people who consider themselves right of center who feel that terrible things have been said to them by people to the left. And I certainly know people on the left who feel that they've witnessed terrible patterns of communication from people on the right. It's a quite disturbing and pervasive problem within the Jewish community. And that experience really was an important part of my own professional journey. It was among a number of events in my professional life that really led me to want to focus in on this issue, because there are many ways in which the Jewish community is endangered, in many ways from the outside, but we need to be not hurting the fabric of relationship within the community by our own speech, by things that ultimately we have control over. And most especially, we need to not be conducting the discourse of the mainstream Jewish community in a way that even further alienates our young people from the Jewish community, and particularly from the issue of Israel, which we know from all kinds of polling. It is an issue that pushes many Jews away, particularly young Jews, away from Israel and away from the Jewish community. So to the extent that we can get hold of this problem of how we tend to indulge in this understandable, natural sort of reaction of how threatening it is or how maddening it is when we encounter a view about an issue which is an area of deep passion for us. And so, of course, I think that my particular opinion about this is the only truth, the only true way to see this. Conversation very, very quickly at dinner tables, at Kiddush celebrations, in synagogue board meetings, in wherever Jews gather. It's a very tragically common experience for Jews now to watch those kinds of conversations degenerate. Not to mention in the pages of newspapers and in online news fora. So I've become very, very interested in the work of the Jewish Dialogue Group and use their materials regularly in my own teaching and facilitating. The Jewish Dialogue Group had the wisdom to partner with an organization called the Public Conversations Project in Boston, which is the national expert on how to conduct public conversations around polarized topics, and to train people to conduct such dialogues and to give people in all kinds of settings around the country a lived experience, embodied experience of how conversation, even in the presence of very significant, very strong disagreement, can nonetheless be conducted in a respectful and even productive way, in a way that not only is the fabric of relationship not torn, but actually it becomes possible for people to learn something. And so it's become deeply important to me for for us to take this message around the Jewish community through North America, and to find ways to expose more Jews and more Jewish institutions to the fact that this is, although it's natural and in everybody's experience that the conversation goes badly, it's really not rocket science. There really are technologies and concepts and methodologies that are known that can help communities and families to have these conversations, these passionate conversations about Israel in a much more productive way. The techniques that the Jewish Dialogue Group uses in its public sessions and presentations and makes available to people around the country through its guidebook are the best materials, bar none, that I have seen to give people an experience of how groups of people can talk about issues about which they have very deep passion, particularly about the issue of Israel, and to have the conversations in ways that don't have to degenerate into name-calling and into personal insults or into people stalking away from the table or from the community, but actually can strengthen the fabric of community and can actually foster trust and learning between people. Such dialogues don't necessarily result in people changing their minds, and that isn't necessarily the goal of dialogue, but the goal of dialogue is to strengthen relationship and to strengthen community and to open the possibility for learning, whereas before every conversation weakened the fabric of relationship and of community. And so it's been my experience, having done a lot of training in this area, that the Jewish Dialogue Group's material is just about the best there is on this particular issue. And I recommend it to people around the country. I recommend it to many communities because people have experienced it, invariably come out with a great sense of surprise that it was possible for people with such divergent views about Israel to have these conversations in ways that were that not only not negative, but were actually strengthening and hopeful, and that gave rise to people hearing things and understanding things that they hadn't understood before. So I'm thrilled that the Jewish Dialogue Group is making its work available to Jewish communities around the country. I'm very grateful for their work, and hope that more and more Jewish communities will avail themselves of the work of the Jewish Dialogue Group.